So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today for this press briefing. My name is Doreen Apollos. I'm going to moderate this press briefing. Today we are going to look at one of our organs, the African Union organs, the African Union Development Agency, AUDA-NEPAD. We are joined by the Chief Executive Officer, Her Excellency, Madam Nardos Bekele-Thomas, who will walk us through what the agency has been doing, particularly in driving the realization of Agenda 2063 and supporting the development agenda of the continent. So allow me to give the floor to the CEO, and then we shall come back to you for further interaction. Ma'am, welcome.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. Well, you can witness the determination and commitment of African member states, to the transformation of their continent, to have an Africa that, their children would want to see, an Africa that they would like to see themselves being a prosperous, stable, peaceful Africa. By the fact that yesterday we spent the entire night here, literally leaving this compound at 5 a.m. in the morning. I have been in the UN for, 40 years, and this is the first time that I see such a commitment. And it's encouraging. I mean, having a dialogue, discussion, and I would really like us as Africans to be proud of having, African member states, but an Africa that has really risen. An Africa that is standing, an Africa that is confident, an Africa that is saying, yes, we are going to arrive at the destination we want to be in the coming 50 years, not 50 years, in the coming 10 years with the second 10-year implementation plan. Now, coming to my organization, the African Union Development Agency, this is really an innovation. And this is one of the commitments of African leaders, saying that we have to lead our own development by ourselves. We have to define our destiny, and we have to walk the talk. And this is why they created the African Union Development Agency in 2018. Unfortunately, 2019 and 2020, I always say we have to take out these 2 years away because they were taken by COVID. And so it came to the real existence, actually, as we go on in 2022. 19 and 20 being the COVID years. And the African Union Development Agency is, actually an offshoot. It's like, in a way, it carries the NEPAD with it, because the NEPAD was a program of priority programs for Africa that member states had identified, and they wanted a real secretariat that would drive that. Now the African Union Development Agency came to existence, understanding the fact that we have a Vision 2063, the blueprint of Africa, and that vision is translated in terms of 10 years implementation plans. There are 5 of them. So they said, we need a development agency. We need a development agency that would coordinate all the development activities in the continent. We need a development agency that would monitor the progress that is made by all these development partners that are really crowding the development space in Africa. What are they doing? Is there any impact? We need a development agency that would mobilize the requisite resources to be implementing the priority areas, but also catalytic, very, focused programs that would have multiplier effects. We need a development agency that is really setting standards, that will set standards, but also assures quality of development delivery in the continent. We need an African Union Development Agency that would focus on youth, women, that would not only address the current problem, but also looks at the future and says, these are the bottlenecks, these are the risks, these might be the shocks, and let's address them and plan for them so that Africa does not dwindle in a crisis all the time. So this is why they created the development agency. And since I came into this organization, first of all, I would like really to recognize my predecessor, who's done a marvelous job, Dr. Mayaki, who's been heading the NEPAD, and then the early days of the AUDA, the African Union Development Agency. And I would like also to recognize all the heads of governments and presidents that are in the what we call the heads in the orientation committee, heads of government, and what do you call it? Heads of state and government orientation committee. And these are 33 heads of state. And we report to them and they direct us. And we have got the Sherpas that are really our, in a way, think tank, and we think through the development programs with them. So, I would like to recognize these heads of state for giving their time. And this year, the president is the president of Egypt, President El-Sisi. Before that was the President Kagame, who's done a marvelous job. And we are doing all what it takes. So now come to the program. What are we doing? As you know, development is a multidisciplinary thing. So we cover all kinds of things, from industrialization, infrastructure, integration, to human capital development, institutional capacity building, to environmental sustainability, climate change, youth, women, social protection. All these fall under us. Okay? So we have got very, multidisciplinary programs, and to date, you might know the program for infrastructure development, which the PIDA. The PIDA is one of our flagship because it's foundational infrastructure for development. For industrialization, we need infrastructure. For everything, we need infrastructure. And infrastructure is not only the rails and the roads that we think, it's the digital infrastructure. It is also infrastructure in terms of agriculture, the irrigation, infrastructure for health. All these infrastructures need to be put in place. So we have put a program. The PIDA is one aspect which takes into account the transport, the railways, the energy, and all this, but also the other infrastructure that are sectoral. Industrialization is very important. Without industrialization, there is no prosperity, and our job would be really creating the value chains, the supply chains, the backward and forward linkages that we require to make sure that industries in Africa thrive and multiply, and the economy is expanded, but we put as many stakeholders in the economy. Putting as many stakeholders in the economy is critical and very important because we need to build the informal sector, we need to build the micro and small enterprises, we need them to graduate to being large enterprises. And therefore, in there, what is very critical and very important is youth engagement and women engagement. They are the force of these industries. And how do you empower them is very critical and very important. And as we go on into human capital, this year the theme is education. Education is critical, foundational, fundamental. We need to really make sure that Africa, takes the STEM seriously, science, technology, and engineering, mathematics, very seriously. We need to make sure that IA becomes a responsible agent for transformation. Digitalization is critical and very important, and that's part of also the infrastructure that we're building. But also, our training institutions, our trainers, our teachers need to be reformed. But we have to make sure that our schools, from primary to tertiary, becomes relevant to the socio-economic transformation process. We have to link planning with education and learning institutions. We have to build the research institutions. We have to make sure that technology centers are really centers that deliver creativity and innovation, and that they are commercialized. And in order to be commercialized, we need to build the support institutions that we know, the intellectual property rights, the standards, the Bureau of Standards and quality assurances, and all these needs to be built in Africa. Are these all to be created? No. There are countries which have them going very well for them, and there are those that are lagging. So, this whole knowledge transfer, knowledge building, knowledge management is critical and important, lucrative in the work that we are doing. And health the pharmaceuticals that we're doing, the harmonization of the legal and regulatory frameworks, so that we are independent. There is health security, that we produce our medicines is critical and very important. And the vaccine production is now really becoming a la mode in Africa because of the necessity, because of COVID. And therefore, we are doing all these things at the same time, but not we. When I say we, when I talk about AUDA, it's not the secretariat. It's all the development actors collectively going together towards the right and priority areas. In terms of climate change, the adaptation, the mitigation is very critical. We have got many programs that deal with biodiversity, afforestation, and all these, I cannot mention, but you will have, I think, as we go out, maybe if we don't have the sticks, but I think we should give them the report of what we have done in just the year 2023. The year 2023, if you ask me, just thinking about last year, because our memories are short, I would say if there were, what are the major contributions of this organization? The first one is the review of our 10-year implementation plan that came to an end in 2023. We reviewed it. We made sure that we understand where we did well, where we didn't well. Our performance is very clear, not only at continental level, but we did it also at regional level, and also we did an assessment of countries, and for countries to understand where they are lagging and where they are performing well. And then based on that, we also designed the second 10-year implementation plan. Not only did we design the second 10-year implementation plan together with the Commission, we also costed, this plan, 10 years. How much does it cost Africa to deliver the targeted, results? And not only did we do that, we didn't plan just for yesterday's deficiency and today's problem, but we had a foresight analysis and scenario building to define the shocks that are, anticipated in the coming 10 years and planned for them. And therefore we came with 7 areas, which we call the moonshots. And these, the totality of it would cost us 8.3 trillion. But, if we go the trend we're going, the 5 million is already budgeted for by nations. And what is the gap is $3.3 trillion. And in order to do that, we are developing a funding instrument, a development fund, where we would be mobilizing resources to be able to fill in the gaps. Not only that, we have the regional economic communities. We are cooperating with them, and we were resolute. And we said we have to be working as one team. And we came with this concept of Africa team. What we did is mapped all their programs, analyzed them, rationalized them, and they're all contained in the second 10-year implementation plan, so that we can deliver as one. So fragmentation, all these uncoordinated activities, we are slowly trying to make sure that our activities are coordinated and wastages and leakages are sealed. Because Africa doesn't really, cannot afford to squander resources anymore. We need to really be efficient, effective in the delivery of our programs. That is our aim and that is our objective. If in fact, the second part is the Continental Master Plan. I hope, there will be another opportunity where we would be presenting the Continental Master Plan. We'll send you some, documents. The Continental Master Plan is also understanding the fact that energy is very critical and very important. So we are doing all the foundations and the fundamental, activities that require for Africa to develop. So, the CMP is the Continental Master Plan that takes into account the mix of energies, okay, and tries to really strengthen the power pools and try to really see production to transmission, how much does it cost and everything. And it's a very comprehensive and very appreciated document that we have developed. Now is the implementation phase. So, these are the things that we have been doing. One thing that would be very important is to understand that while we are doing all this, you see that so many countries are going into unstable, and I'm sure you will ask me that question. But what we're trying to do is really understand that all these political instabilities that we are facing are mostly as a result of lack of development. It's poverty, it's unemployment that drives this. So we've come out with the triple nexus, and we said, listen, you will see us where countries are sanctioned. You will see us in Mali, you will see us in Niger, you will see us in Burkina Faso, you will see us in Guinea. Why? Because that's where we are needed. We need to seal these conflicts with development. We need to give hope to the people of Africa. And therefore, that's what we're doing. We're coming out with the Triple Nexus program, Peace, Security, and Development, which is now developed. And, our Heads of State and Government Orientation Committee approved it. And we are going to mobilize resources and start implementing. And we need you to amplify this. We need you to amplify this because African people can master their own development. We don't have to beg all the time. And you are very critical and very important. This program is yours. And each one of us has a responsibility towards the development and transformation of Africa. I thank you because there are many programs, and I'm sure when you ask questions, then I will be able to elaborate on some of them and also get your insights. It's not going to be from me to you, but also from you. We are in this together.
Thank you, Excellency. You've highlighted quite critical points on the importance of strategic partnership, how we are resolving the complexities of development and the nexus between development, peace, and security. We've also mentioned about the innovative financing mechanisms that we have, and of course, what the past 10 years of the implementation of Agenda 2063 has entailed as we move into the second phase of implementation of Agenda 2063. I will now open the floor to the press to be able to interact. I will request that you tell us your name, indicate the media house you're representing, then go ahead to ask your question. We will request in the interest of time you make your question very brief and precise. Show of hands, those who want to ask a question. Gentleman at the back, gentleman here. Any other question from the floor? Lady there. Please, I will ask that you come speak on this microphone so we make sure we can hear you, and Leila as well. So we have 4 hands. We'll take that first round of questions, which Her Excellency will respond to, and then we'll come back in case we need another round.
Thank you so very much, Your Excellency, for quite an elaborate presentation. Thank you so very much. My name is William Kumwembe. I'm an African Union Media Fellow and a journalist from Malawi. I have 2 questions for you, Your Excellency. The first one is regarding to growth in terms of GDP. Figures are indicating that in the past 10 years or so, the economy of African countries have been growing on average about 3.5% or thereabouts. Precisely 2022, 23, 24, we've been within the same space. My question is your impression, because we cannot talk of development without attaching directly the concept of GDP growth. What's your impression of the pace that we are taking as a continent? Why I'm asking this question, because economists are saying that if we are to hit a lower middle income economy state for most economies of the continent, at least we should be growing by 7% per year for the next 10 years. What's your impression? Are we taking the pace that we should desire? And also, you said, and I quote, African people can manage their own development. We don't have to beg always. We cannot talk of developing our own economies without talking of trade. For quite some time, we've relied on debt and aid. Are we taking a positive trajectory in as far as trade within and across is concerned? Thank you.
Question from you?
Thank you, Your Excellency. My name is Blessed Sudan. I work with Joy News in Accra, Ghana. So my question has got to do with this master plan that you're talking about. A great factor that may affect this and its execution is the sovereign debt crisis that many African countries are going through. That includes Ghana and Zambia, which are the talk of town right now in terms of the engagements with the International Monetary Fund. It's been a challenge for many of these countries who now have a very small fiscal space to go ahead and to implement their capital projects. What would you advise? What would be your advice to these countries to weather the storm and to turn the corner? And also, we are looking forward to the dialogue, the presidential dialogues tomorrow. What's your expectation, and what would you want to hear from the leaders? Thank you.
Thank you. The lady and then Leila.
Bonjour tout le monde. Rim Ben Khalifa, EU Media Fellow from Tunisia. Ma question est la suivante. Vous avez évoqué le sujet de changement climatique et des frustrations. Quelles sont vos initiatives et projets à l'égard de ça, à court terme et à long terme? Merci beaucoup.
Leila.
You're so close, we can talk. So my name is Leila. I'm from the AU Media Fellowship Core Team Organization, and I'm from Tunisia as well. So my question would be more focused on communication, as this is my expertise. So now I see from the different reports that we had from the AUDA-NEPAD in South Africa when we were there for the study trip. We have also access to the data on the website. We see how your agency is doing like a great efforts to ensure for the next generation like a better situation economically, environmentally, and on all levels. So my question would be, are we prepared, and how are we preparing for communicating that and letting the next generation? We know that there is this gap now with the Generation Z in terms of communication, and it will be even bigger with the Alpha generation. So how are we prepared to communicate that and let them know and be aware of all our efforts? Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. CEO, want to respond to those questions first, and then?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you so much. First is the question on growth. Yeah, the question on growth and related to that is the trade thing. Yeah, I think it's very critical and very important. I mean, 7% growth is not something that is not achievable. At one point in time before COVID, countries were growing 2 digits. I mean, this country had a 2-digit growth, and most African countries had 7% growth. And, COVID came and everything went down. But, this is just normal, this fluctuation in growth. But, this should not be the trend. 3.5 actually, and this year, 2024, it will go a little bit up to 4.2. 4.5, that's the projection. But amidst this, there are so many structural problems. And that's what we need to address, so that we don't go back and forth, but we have got, a growth that is really consistently high, so that, it's not only just the growth, but also we put as many stakeholders. Our problem is that with growth, with middle-income countries, there is so much inequality. Why? Because we don't put as many people to become stakeholders of the economy. Okay, they're just very few, and it's not really broad-based growth, and we need a broad-based growth, and that's why industrialization is critical and very important. Countries cannot only grow with trade and commerce. We need to do manufacturing. We need to industrialize. And that's where, the whole aspect of the value chain, the supply chain that we're talking about, identifying the growth pillars and making sure that this supply chain and value chain are not only at national level, but also at regional level, but also continental level, facilitated by all infrastructural development, is critical and very important. And this continental master plan that we're talking about energy, the energy mixes, and having one single, energy market, that would, is really the electrification of this continent is critical and very important. So we are doing the groundwork so that it is a broad-based thing, and that Africa is also integrated, and Africa shares its resources, and Africa trades with each other. So I would come to the trading part. Yes, we can trade with others, but we can only, build our value chain and be integrated if we really focus and see how we can trade also among ourselves. But, of course, there are many other issues that we need to address. And African free trade, the AfCFTA, is doing such a remarkable job. And we are doing the groundwork of creating the, like, for example, the borders. We have got what we call the one-stop border post, which looks at, the borders and making sure that it facilitates the movements of goods and products. And we have got the, the traffic light, the border traffic lights also. These are all mechanisms to make sure that we trade among ourselves. It's only when we have a finished good, that is competitive, that we can trade with others. And that could happen when we are all integrated, when we have an integrated economy, okay, and take advantage of also our market with this population that is there, and take advantage of our demographic dividend, the young ones, these intelligent, creative young ones that can come out with their own startups, their own businesses, but they need support. And how do you bring all this together is critical and very important. What is very, for me, coming from the UN and having worked in many countries, what I see is that whenever you go to countries, there are, so many programs and projects, but they don't even talk to each other. Knowledge is not even built. There are like 50,000 here, 100,000 visibility of things. So, our job is to bring all this, to make them to be impactful, so that they are done at scale to meet the needs of the people. So I think, growth is possible. Let's not be discouraged. Already the 3 point something, if you compare it to the growth rates of the Western world, we're doing okay. It's just the fact that, it's not a broad-based growth. So, we have to make sure that, the economy, the way it is shared economy. So I would stop there, and we are trying to foster intra-African trade, which is so low, and promote that to the extent possible. But then the Ghana, you were talking about sovereign debt, the debt crisis. Normally debt is not a problem. The efficiency, the utilization of this resource is very important. The debt management is critical and very important. There is no country that would just develop without debt. It's like you want to buy a house, you have to really go into mortgage, but how you manage that is very critical and very important. So the debt management is very important, debt restructuring is very important, debt relief is very important, negotiating for that is critical and very important, and most importantly also we are looking at really the whole the credit worthiness. Capital for Africa is becoming very expensive. When Africans borrow from outside, it's more expensive than the Europeans borrowing money. So and all that needs to be managed carefully. And we were talking in our offices, and we're saying these credit rating companies are not doing us favor. So we have to really develop our capacity to have a credit rating companies here within Africa that looks at our structures, that looks at our businesses, that looks at our, way we manage our resources, that looks at our fiscal space, the monetary space, and all the macroeconomic aspects. And I tell you, there was a time when in Kenya, we said, listen, you can do your credit rating, but we are going to do, our own credit rating. And guess what? It influenced and informed the international rating. So, sometimes we have to really build our own capacity. What does that do? That helps us in terms of getting capital at a lower rate than, higher rate, because the risk of borrowing is lower. So I think, there is so much to be done in terms of this, making sure that the financial infrastructure that we have is really well understood and well managed. But in the meantime, also the debt relief, debt restructuring, the debt swaps that we're talking are very critical instruments that we need to promote. Yeah. So then there is the thing about the climate change, Madam. Yeah. So, we are doing, it's a vast program. But what we are trying to do now is making sure that we have a comprehensive program of environmental sustainability, climate change, that will take into account all aspects of activities, measures that we would take in terms of adaptability, climate adaptation and mitigation. We will take into account, the soil, what do you call it, the soil restoration. I didn't sleep the whole night. So preservation, conservation, all these aspects would be in one, plus the blue economy, which we are not taking advantage of it. So, we are having a comprehensive program, but we have many programs in different, sectors in terms of soil restoration. We have got a program, very important program. The AFR 100 is, biodiversity, afforestation, which we are spending a lot of money on green walls, right? Building the green walls in Africa, especially in the Sahel. It is making a lot of difference. But all these programs needs to be scaled up. All these programs need to be coordinated and to be made, impactful. So, so that is what we are going, and also the readiness of Africa for carbon credit is very important and very critical. Africa has got the second lung of the world. The Congo Basin is giving oxygen to the rest of the world, and we're not getting anything out of it. Why? Because of the very bureaucratic mechanism of accessing the carbon market. And therefore, we are helping African countries. We're going to getting accredited, to the GCF, and through that, we are ready to support African countries have access to carbon credit. It's very important that we do that. We have got the loss and damage that has been passed in the COP27, then COP28, okay? But we need to really make sure that we take advantage of this. There are many funds over there, and they are taken advantage of by the international organizations and not us. So we need to really develop our capacities and be able to be up to the game and take advantage of all these resources that are available. But in the meantime, also build and understand that we have got a niche, because through green economy, blue economy, we would have much more, leverage in terms of our growth and development. So these are the things that we are looking at from there. And also we're looking at smart agriculture. And we're looking at our national determined contributions and linking it to the national investment plan for agriculture, because they are intertwined and interlinked, and we are trying to create that synergy in between that, and making sure that agriculture is, takes the technologies that are necessary, smart technologies, to make sure that it doesn't have any impact, or it's really environment friendly, and you know, they are reinforcing each other, the two programs. Communication, yes. And if there is one thing that Africa doesn't do well, is communication. And we need to develop the communication. In terms of communication also, we need to develop the infrastructure. And we need to know on how to reach to the different audience. At my age, what I know to do is just to communicate the way I was taught to, the way I know. But you know, the generation, the majority of Africans are young ones, and their communication techniques, their communications, mode of communications are different. You know, it was only just recently that I learned that, you know, you could go like this, you know, rather than tapping on your mobile phone. And it was Zamzam who told me, and she sees me always. She says, "No, madam, you can do this," and it writes. So, you know, these are the things that we really need to understand. But the most important thing nowadays is, you know, if I want to reach out to my children, you know, before I used to go to, you know, call them and whatever. Now I just go to all their modes of communication. I go and see where they are, their TikToks and this, what do you call it? Instagram and all this, you know. So, you know, it's very incredible how the world has changed, you know. And therefore, we need to be up to that also in terms of our communication. Why? Because it's through educating our children that we can be where we want to be, really. And you know, it's very important that we do have this communication. When we started, my colleagues are here, no one knew about Agenda 2063. In Africa, people would say SDGs. You go to the ministries, SDGs is there and whatever. The reports, SDG, you know, not Agenda 2063. And yet our Agenda 2063 was there before the SDGs. The SDGs were informed by the Agenda 2063. Why we do not communicate? So we need to communicate, and that's where I need you. We need you. AUDA-NEPAD needs you. Please help us to communicate, because we need to build the confidence of our people. We need to be confident. We need to know ourselves. We need to be proud of being Africans. We need to know that we are very rich, not poor. And just change the language. Let's eradicate poverty from our minds. Let's not even talk about it. Let's talk about prosperity and not poverty. You know, so I think, you know, it's really the mindset could be shifted to being more, you know, pro-development if we use the right words, and if we are positive in our outlook, and if we make sure that people, Africans, are confident of their institutions, of themselves, of who they are, their culture and everything. So it's fundamental and foundational. So please help us. Leila? Okay? So we'll hold you responsible and accountable to this. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, my sister.
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency. We want to thank you for that elaborate brief, and thank you, members of the press. Again, the CEO has thrown the challenge to us to say, it's now for us to tell the stories and to give those solutions-oriented narratives. So we want to thank you for your engagement. The conversation doesn't stop here. We will continue, of course, briefing you on many activities that are happening during this summit and what the African Union is doing in the different political and social economic portfolios. So please do join the other press conferences that are coming up, but don't forget to also visit our website, au.int, to make sure you stay updated on all the activities that are happening across the union. And before you go, I also want to extend an invitation to you, maybe just a follow-up to what a colleague from Ghana was saying. Tomorrow morning, we are having a very interesting discussion. It starts at 7:30 a.m. It's a presidential dialogue that will focus on the establishment of the African Union financial institutions, the reforms that the African Union is pushing on the global financial architecture, and also the launch of the Africa Club. So it's a conversation you find very exciting when we are talking about the debt crisis, managing recession, as well as the special drawing rights that Africa is pushing for. So do join us tomorrow morning at the Multipurpose Hall for that conversation. Thank you. And we want to apologize also for starting this press briefing late, as the CEO said. We left here at 5:30 in the morning. So we've only had a couple of hours of sleep and then came back very early again to continue with the activities of the day. So do bear with us, and thank you for indulging us. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.